Welcome back to the Growth Hacking Culture podcast. We have all heard the headlines about the AI, the productivity gains, the efficiency, the disruption, but behind the data lies a much more profound story, the story of our own biology colliding with the digital age. Today's episode is titled Agency, Empathy, and Algorithms Navigating the Great Collisions at Work. To help us navigate this, I'm joined by Paul Gibbons. Paul is a renowned leadership expert, philosopher, and author of the groundbreaking new book, Brains, Bodies, Minds: How AI is Transforming Medicine, Therapy, and Wellness. While Paul's latest work looks at the frontier of health and therapy, the implications for the corporate world are massive. We are at a crossroads where algorithms are beginning to manage our performance, simulate our empathy, and even define our purpose. Today, we are going to pull back the curtain on whether an AI driven HR tool can ever truly be trusted, what happens to our human edge, our judgment, and agency when IQ becomes a cheap commodity, and we will ask the hard question: in an automated world, is the corporate purpose we are sold every day a genuine path to flourishing or just a sophisticated fallacy? Paul, again, it is a pleasure to have you here to help us make sense of these great collisions. Wonderful to have you.
Hey, good to be here. Good to be here.
And let me jump straight to the core of the problem. Um, you know that already, that I have read your book with a lot of pleasure. And you
Yeah.
highlight that AI can be more objective, but also carry encoded biases. If a company uses AI for performance reviews or mental health support, God knows that some employees need it. How can employees trust a system that lacks a moral compass? Can an employee truly feel
Ha.
safe or not in front of this AI tool?
I mean, so there's a whole. Oh my God, that's like six questions. So trust is a huge deal for AI. We're going to park one part of it, which is over trusting the models, which is a problem if you're a user. So hallucinations and all of that. So let's park that side of it. The other side of it is trusting the models as confidants, as advisors, as coaches and therapists, right?
Mm.
And this is a fascinating topic. Now, I think we have to be careful about when we are comparing AI, whether we're comparing it with an ideal human
Mm.
super manager, the most empathetic, structured, empowering, uplifting manager in the entire universe, or if we're comparing AI with a sort of good enough manager.
Mm.
So one thing's for sure, right? I don't think anybody argued this. Like compared to the worst, the bottom quartile, the bottom half, maybe it's quite a lot better because it doesn't bring all the emotional bullshit to it. I mean, I've had bosses who, I was working at IBM, and I make no secret of this. Like I spent 6 weeks in extreme depression. I felt like I was on the receiving end of what women had talked about for 5 centuries. Anyway, so let's compare that. And so um, the therapy question is an interesting one because there's a lot of horrifying stories. So I just kind of want to put that to bed for a moment, just like really shortly, is when they test AI therapy against human therapists, they kind of do it two ways. They compare outcomes and it performs more or less as well. Now,
Mm.
I want to put some caveats around that. We don't know what happens with edge cases. Like, we don't know what happens with people who are, the two sigma, like really, really depressed. Neither do we know long term, and we won't know for another 10 or 20 years because that's what the long term is, what the long term effects on mental health are for using AI as a therapeutic replacement. But there's two things about that. It does very, very well. The other way they evaluate it is have professional clinical psychologists evaluate what it says. So they'll provide human transcripts and they'll provide AI transcripts, and they'll have human raters say, Who's doing a better job here?
Hmm.
The AI does better. The AI does better. The AI does better. The third dimension of that, now most people are horrified by this, right? Okay. And a lot of therapists are horrified by it. When you think about empathy, this is a really interesting question. It's got a philosophical side to it. People say it's a silicon thing with blinking lights on it. It can't empathize.
Hmm.
And I say bullshit
Hmm.
uh, to that. And it partly depends what you mean. I say bullshit like there's not like no truth to it. And there's something precious and intimate and warm about a human connection. But think about this. If you feel supported, listened to, heard, and they help you in a therapeutic manner, and if you didn't know whether you were talking to a human or AI, which you might not know today, and you get what you want, I would call that empathy. So in a sense, for me, the empathy lies in the receiver of this.
Hmm.
If I feel it is empathizing, if I feel empathized with.
Hmm.
Now, again, we don't know about edge cases. I'm not saying it's all. I think actually this AI world makes human relationships more precious. Like I think the more technology weaves into our lives, the more, with my kids and with my friends, I think I got to get out of the house and spend some time with some people. Like there's a way in which you can sometimes take that for granted. So that's that. Now you said, okay, managers, right? And I said, okay, let's not compare it with some ideal fantasy super manager, really pathetic. You go to them with a problem or something like that, and they say, let me make sure I understand you. That sounds like it's really difficult for you. And first of all, I want to focus on like being really supportive, with the problems you're struggling with, right? Or someone who's an exceptionally good delegator,
Hmm.
who's never ambiguous, right? Who's never unreasonable in terms of deadlines. Let's not. I I don't know what I make these numbers up, but like what percentage of managers are really skillful
Hmm.
at delegating and holding people to account? Not that many, right? So is it better than the average? Perhaps so. Now, I'm not saying, by the way, that we should just like take all these kind of average and shitty managers, pull them out of the system, put in a bunch of bots to manage people. I don't want to live in a world where we're the servants of the machine. I like that's not the way of hearing what I'm saying. But I'm saying as first of all, as an augmentation to the manager, and I'll talk about that in a second. And secondly, what do we want? Do we want exceptional or do we want good enough? Do we
Hmm.
want professional, respectful, empathetic in a kind of machine-like way?
Hmm.
And I think we can get there. And the other thing that you said in your questions to me, which I thought was really great, is the AI augmented manager. Actually, let me let you talk for a minute. But I do want to talk about the AI augmented manager and whether an AI augmented manager might be more or less competent, empathetic, supportive, psychological safety. But let's do that next. But what do you think about what I said about the whole AI and therapy thing first, before I go
So
on like,
I have a couple of good, powerful insights. So what you're
all
saying
right.
is that AI is better in average than the human average, which is, and by the way, it's not like it comes out of your butt. No, no, no. I saw in your books that you put the sources of the research that you took in order to
Yeah, like
validate
like
that
like
stuff.
Stanford or Wharton or the places like this.
Yeah,
They're not.
it was some famous somebody. So which I tend to I really believe on that. And I had a look at the research that you picked in there for your book. There was also something that really struck me in what you say, and also that is mentioned in your book. That is, this is better than nothing, because the nothing is that there is a lot of people in society or in the workplace who feel bloody lonely, who don't feel connected.
Amen. Amen. And therapy is really expensive.
Yeah, indeed.
It's really expensive and it's really stigmatized.
Mm.
even going to your general practitioner
mm,
who, they had 8 minutes with you,
mm,
right? Do you really want to get into? They're like, "How are you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, well, yeah, pretty good. One day at a time. One foot in front of the other." And like the for you to say, actually, not good, like not good at all. And really, I wonder if you could refer me to some help. Like that's kind of a big conversation.
mm.
So anyway, I just want to park that in there. Like it's a severely gated resource
Yeah.
in the world, and my big argument is access.
Mm,
That's my big argument. Not if it's 80% is good or 60% is good or whatever you want to say or about like whatever, right?
mm,
I'm talking about tens of millions of people who wouldn't otherwise get some sort of thing. And we talk about an epidemic of loneliness in the world, right? I mean, this is
mm,
something that's talked about in all the psychological things. I just think it's much of an exaggeration. There's a
mm,
book by a sociologist called Robert Putnam, who wrote a book, 25 years ago now, but he's very famous. It might even be Harvard, right? Sociologist who wrote a book called Bowling Alone.
mm,
And it's this destruction of shared spaces,
mm.
which were once taken by the church. I no longer go myself, but I can certainly see showing up at 9 o'clock in the morning for 90 minutes and hanging out with people, and the purpose of which is not to kill one another, but rather to support one another and love one another, support one another. Like that. That's a good thing. But also community memberships, shared social spaces. I live in a, you live in a here. You jump into your car. You go to the supermarket. We don't have like public spaces where people are mixing with people. So the Robert Putnam talked about the death of all of that, which is called the book Bowling Alone. And we live in a like more and more atomized. That's not an AI thing. That's
Yeah.
not an AI thing, right?
Mm,
Yeah,
mm,
that's long predates that. And so the question in the book is like, if you're feeling shitty at 2 o'clock in the morning, or depressed or anxious or whatever, wherever you might go, and you can say, man, talk me through this. First of all, there's no stigma.
mm,
It's not judgy. So
mm,
anyway, I say there's a lot of good to be explored, and the chapter was a reaction to the hysteria in the media. Like I unsubscribed from my favorite newspaper. I've been a subscriber of for 30 years, just because the coverage on AI is so overwhelmingly negative.
mm.
And particularly in this thing, people want to point to a poor fellow who was using AI as a therapist who ended his life. And on the one hand, if their family would hear, I want to cry and hug and support them. But then they say, oh, it was the AI. They're talking bullshit. Because the sad fact of the matter, I can't remember the numbers from the book, maybe you do, of how many, is it hundreds of thousands or millions?
I
We're
don't
talking about it.
remember.
I don't remember, but the number of people who end their lives is horrifically large.
Mm,
And the number of people using AI is, for therapeutic support, depends on how you measure it and what you mean by that, 10 to 20 million, let's say.
mm.
The exact numbers are in the book. So, what percentage of those people are contemplating suicide? Rather a lot. Like it's 3% or 6. It depends if they're considering it over the course of a year or considering it like in this moment.
Yep.
And then the other thing is like, it's not like someone who was in therapeutic care never committed suicide.
Mm,
So, and again, it's what are you comparing this with? So I want to say, God, I can't imagine what it's like to lose a son or a child of any kind. And on the other hand, when I see these hysterical things in The Guardian, I think, what's the denominator, man?
mm.
Like, because when I see like 4 people have done it, committed suicide who are using AIs, I think that's a minuscule number. Anyway,
Mm,
so
mm.
I don't want to get all preachy. So I think I do want to say one thing that's a kind of big bracket around what I'm saying. It's early, early days.
Mm.
Like when I cite research in the book, it's like one study here, one study there, one study there. We need hundreds of studies that cover millions of people. right? And over longer periods of time. So while I'm kind of an AI evangelist in a way, I also think there's a lot we don't know. And I think hysteria on both sides, whether it's Sam Altman or The Guardian, is an error. Anyway, I've spoken for too long. What do you think about what do you think, buddy? I know you've got strong views on this.
Paul, I wanted to derive a little bit towards the direction of, can an employee trust a tool that has been given by the company to help him either with his support, to his mental support, or in order to help him with his talent development? If it has been given by a company, we have two scenarios. So we have the fans, the enthusiasts about AI who will take everything without questioning anything, especially not the ethics of the AI. And then we have the guys who are in Swiss German, we say the nine sayers, who are always saying, no, 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 we don't want this, human is better. And I think in both cases, we are a little bit exaggerating. So how can this employee, this average employee, ask the right questions in order to decide, do I take this
Yeah,
and do I trust this AI that was given by my company, or bullshit?
I I gotta say, people talk to me. So this is speaking personally, right?
Yeah.
Like if someone told me like AI is supervising everything you do, I wouldn't give a shit because I don't do anything that is going to end me up in jail or anything that's morally reprehensible. So that now there are people who say that's naive, and then the other stance. So like Paul Gibbons is the kind of like I don't really worry about this personally, and then there's the other side who see everything that comes out of Silicon Valley as being conspiratorial and some way of putting Big Brother into your living room,
Mm,
which maybe not today, but someday will be horrible. And so there's two extremes. So in the middle of that is how can you trust them? In a sense, there's probably a level at which you absolutely can't.
mm,
Right? There's probably a level like if you created a sort of shadow Facebook company whose goal was to entice you in with this social media clickbait, find out about you and manipulate you. I mean, it could never happen, right? It
oh,
happens every day.
hello.
I'm kidding. I'm joking. I'm being facetious. That's exactly what it does do. Uh, um, but your employer can already scrutinize your email,
Mm,
every word that's entered on your computer. Um, do we trust the gating and the firewalls and the guardrails in specific use cases? I think, first of all, it's a very personal decision. I do.
mm,
If somebody said under no circumstances, I guess I have no way of proving them wrong. Um, but I do think that, first of all, it's early days. And I do think that this is one of the main issues that we're going to confront over the next 5 or 10 years as a society is how much do you trust the bot? I trust it quite a lot. How much
mm,
do I trust Silicon Valley? Kind of depends what you mean. Like not very much. Do I trust them with my data? Yes. So, but I think what we're going to be compelled to do as a society is the big labs are going to have to. We already trust. Like I use Gmail, right?
mm.
Do I know? Do I know what Google's doing with my Gmail account? No. They have assurance that it's gated, it's not training data on it, it's not going to be used for any nefarious purposes. Do I know that for a fact? 100% not.
Mm, mm,
Do I know that Amazon isn't sharing my purchase information by someone who would wish to do me harm?
mm,
I have no idea. I have no idea. They say they're not. Can I prove it? No. So, in a sense, we can't, I don't think, ever prove the negative that this is 100% secure.
mm.
But on the other hand, so I think both the extreme, but I don't know. What do you think? You were thinking about that. I mean, that. This is, I'm not really, I don't, I feel so unqualified because there's part of me is like, I don't, if you want to read my emails, boy, you can have,
But that's the
I don't like reading them. I don't think you will.
something that struck me with on what you said is that today I'm not doing anything morally questionable in with AI, but morality is changing. So let's give the example. So today, because I don't understand all the politics of the world, sometimes I do research. So what is this group that they are mentioning as terrorists? I ask AI that from where, what do they come from? What do they believe in? So that is information that I'm asking about something that maybe the most powerful
You know,
countries in the world are asking for. Yes, Paul?
you're absolutely right. And we had a very innocent political conversation, which I won't share during this beforehand. And maybe it would have done us harm if people knew what we were talking about and the way we were talking about. By the way, it wasn't like anything like for your guests. It's I think horrifying that we were talking about. But we talked politics briefly. There were people who would find our conversation, you know, they would not agree, maybe not agree violently. Anyway, um, it's a good question. I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean,
I think that we live in a time where we have to constantly compare, benchmark our judgments about a tool that we are using. Like, for instance, maybe the first months where Grok was launched, it was still not super biased. But today I'm spending time to see if there is some delta in terms of biases from Grok compared to, I don't know, to Gemini or ChatGPT
well,
or
there is, right? They
yeah,
are they are different. Yeah, they do
exactly.
do they do do they do, and it's a question you say unbiased. First of all, I don't think that applies to anything in the world, not humans, not institutions, not AIs, or
Mhm.
something like that. They're all biased in the sense AI is biased against women and people of color. You know
Mm.
why? Because it's trained on pictures of white people sitting in a boardroom and brown people sitting in a field,
Yeah.
and like um Grok particularly hallucinated some horrifying things about white genocide in South Africa and started publicizing this stuff. And then when it criticized Musk, someone asked some question about Musk and his policies and his, quasi
Mm.
racism or whatever, you could say about Musk, whatever. I don't want to get into all of that. And that got buttoned up really fast.
Mm.
So I don't trust that.
Mm.
But I don't see that same disease with Gemini and with Claude and with OpenAI. And I do want to say of all of those, Dario Amodei from Anthropic
Mm.
has been from the very, very first day said this thing is, first of all, more powerful than any one of you understand, more powerful than I can imagine, way, way underestimated. I agree with him. Secondly, it's way more dangerous than anybody is accounting for right now. And Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, who's ex OpenAI, one of the founders, I think, of AI, OpenAI, Anthropic, he is the most safety conscious of all of them. And people criticize them all with the same brush. And I think it's slightly unfair because I do know that Anthropic were first criticized by investors for being too safety conscious,
Mm.
for being too guarded. So nobody's got a halo on their head.
Mm.
And there's a very interesting thing. So Dario Amodei, chief executive of Anthropic, was debating with Demis Hassibis, the founder of DeepMind, at Davos, and they had like an hour. Two really, really, very, very, very smart. Demis Hassibis won the Nobel Prize at like 42 years old, you know. And they're having a debate about AGI. And Demis thinks it's 5 years away.
Mm.
And Dario thinks it's 1 to 2 years away. And he thinks closer to one than to two. But Dario said, I wish you were right and not me, because that's what I think is going to happen. But I don't think it's a good thing because I don't think we're ready for it. I don't think we're ready for the economic, the societal disruptions that this is going to unleash upon humanity. He's like me. He's a kind of an AI bull. This can do some incredible things for us. And he's also like the human systems, governments, policy institutions, laws, protections aren't there. I
Mm,
can't agree more. I don't
exactly.
know what's your view on. Did you hear that debate? It was really interesting.
I haven't heard the debate. I saw like a tweet somewhere, but I didn't
Right,
go
right,
in
right.
so much into the full
Are you
debate.
still on? You're still on Twitter?
Yeah, I know. I left for a couple of months. I went to Blue Sky, and gosh,
Blue Sky's getting better.
yes, indeed, it is. It
I
is.
refuse to use. I refuse to use Twitter.
I have to reconsider. I stopped just a couple of months,
Life,
but
life for like for 6 or 7. I just don't want to be part of that ecosystem, man. You
mm,
know, like
it is
it doesn't
toxic.
add.
Yes.
It's not like it adds any value to my life. So one of these kind of influencer guys who's like, oh, you can scale your business to $100,000 a month using blah 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 blah. He says, this is the way you manage your Twitter account. I said, bro, I don't use Twitter. He's like,
Mm,
well, it's a neat place to be for, if you want to be an influencer. I'm like, I don't give a shit. I don't care if Musk is handing out $100 bills every time you log in. I wouldn't use Twitter. So, so I just
that's a
don't want to
good
be part
point.
of a system. Yeah.
Mm,
I don't, there's enough choice in the world. I mean, people say this with AI slop, right?
mm,
People go,
yes.
AI slop, AI slop, AI slop, AI slop. Dude, don't look at it. Uninstall that shit, block him, like people go AI slop on TikTok. It's like, well, I don't actually have a TikTok account. AI slop on LinkedIn. Well, that's what block is for, or that's what the thing is for. Like you, there's enough slop in the world that predates AI.
Mm,
My kids watch something. It's called Meth Gators. They have very good taste in TV. They like Black Mirror,
uh-huh.
Severance, all these kind of very thought-provoking shows. I go downstairs one time, they're watching meth gators. I said, what the heck is this? He said that the alligator is on crystal meth. I think, are you out of your mind? And you know what the sequel to that show was? Bears getting drunk, getting into your garbage and drinking the last of your bottle of tequila. The bears getting shit faced on your back lawn. I'm like, dude, really? You guys really, like, you're 15 and you're 21. Can you do a little bit better? But anyway, there's slop that predates AI. There's slop that has nothing to do with AI. Slop probably predates the Gutenberg printing press. So I
Paul,
think what it forces you to do is be more like deliberate about your curation, don't you think? I don't know. What do you think?
exactly. That definitely helps. Paul, I wanted to get back to the core of this story about AI and the workplace, and especially about a topic that is I'm super interested in, and we already talked a little bit about it, about this augmented manager. So
Oh yeah,
can
that's interesting. Yeah.
yeah. We need to close that loop. Can AI augmented manager provide this sense of belonging that employees crave? Is it really a biological necessity for human to human resonance, or that AI cannot replace? What is your feeling about that?
Well, I mean, the AI is not there to do that job, right? But let me ask you, did you use AI to prepare for this meeting?
Yes, I did. I
Okay,
did.
so did I. So I posted in your website. I posted in the questions you answered me. I posted in your last few podcasts. And I said, that's a lot of information, right, bro? Right? A lot. And I said, like, what's this guy about? And what's he thinking about right now? And what are his commitments in life? That's an AI augmented manager kind of thing, is it not?
Mm, it is.
I go to every business meeting I go to today 10 times better prepared.
Hmm.
Does that enable me to connect more or less? Thought question for your audience. The
It's,
fact that I had a meeting with someone who's the president of a bank or something like that. I knew everything about her.
hmm, hmm.
She went to college with Hillary Clinton. I was like, "Oh, you went to college with Hillary Clinton?" She said, "Oh, not many people know that." I said, "Oh, what a surprise!" um, you know, I think that's part of being a good manager.
That is true. You're
Isn't
totally
it?
right.
Isn't it? I mean, I'm not asking it to do any feeling for me. I'm not asking my Gemini here to get on the phone with you and try like. But I feel like I was better able to be with you, and I knowing your commitments in life and the philosophical questions you're grappling with, and what you're trying to build. So I found that very useful.
Mm.
And I find it useful for everybody I go and talk to. Is like, you know, I go really well prepared. Now, is that is that's the AI augmented manager? Like, is that a bad thing? I don't know. You tell me. What are your thoughts? You asked the question. I answered with a sort of I answered with it, but it was a slightly devious answer. But what do you think?
I think that this is going to be the one of the biggest contributions in the for the culture of in the workplace to have this manager who can rely on somebody giving him feedback, information collected, as you mentioned. It is quite interesting to regroup information from different sources in order to understand better the purpose of an individual, know that to know better the triggers for motivating this person, to also for the manager to have the possibility to have feedback on how am I interacting with my direct reports. Today it is impossible to
100%.
have somebody to follow all the
100%.
time. AI can listen to some of
100%.
your
Say
conversations.
you're
Yes.
having a performance management conversation, right? The guy's been working for you for a year. You shouldn't do this only once a year. But anyway, say you're doing it once a year, like most people do, right? And you don't want to prepare for that. Now, if you were being really thorough, you look at all our work products for the last 12 months, you look at some metrics, you'd look at in a balanced scorecard kind of way. It takes a lot of time. Who does that? Who does that?
AI.
Because I went into my first when I joined consulting, I went into my first meeting with a partner who was like, really big partner, like 20 partners working for him in consulting. Right? I had my performance management meeting with him. He took the papers and he went, I don't give a shit about all of that. You and me, let's just have a chat. Like I think that's what he's never been the kind of guy that would spend half an hour preparing for a performance management meeting. Never in his life. But you should, right? That's your responsibility. You got that person's career in your hand. It's incumbent upon you to prepare for that. Now, how would I use I to prepare for that? I'm not managing anyone, thank God. The world is a grateful place. But if I was managing someone now and I was doing a performance management meeting, I'd go, give me a summary of everything they've done.
Another thing, Paul.
What are some good questions I could ask them? You know, uh, me going in prepared will allow me to be a better manager. And part of being a better empathize more, challenge more, but appropriately, delegate better. All these kind of things. Yeah. Anyway, that's what I think about it. I think it's a huge plus. The augmented managers, you say.
I
I don't know.
I also feel, Paul, that we as humans have this natural tendency that is a little bit subjective to think that we are special, that we are not capable of flaws, because we don't realize how often we are biased. And even myself, who spend a lot of time working on myself, self-awareness diaries and all this
Sure.
stuff, I
Sure.
have
Yeah. Yeah.
still millions
Journaling,
of biases.
meditation, yoga,
Yeah.
incense. I know. I know.
And it's hard to control. So I think that the humans are better off understanding their weaknesses. So these biases that we can have, the impossibility to have this recollection of all the information about a specific person as a manager. So and if we know already what are our weaknesses, we can use AI in a better way to compensate. So AI is as bad as we humans can be, but I don't think that
Yeah.
we can put down the power of AI. And talking a lot of people justifies that we we shouldn't be using so much AI because of the it cannot replace a human. In fact, if we look at how our brain
That's
functions,
that
empathy
that
is
that's your
mining.
choice. I would say that's your choice.
Huh?
How much it replaces a human, that's all up to you. right?
Yeah.
Don't blame it,
Hmm?
right? But
A-
anyway,
a- Absolutely. So we have to be careful with this story about saying that we humans are better than AI. We are not. We are just unaware of all our flaws. And this is the moment to recalibrate to our
well,
discussion.
yeah. I mean, I mean, no human's perfectly self-aware. Uh, um, can AI help you build self-awareness? It's an interesting question for the personal growth movement. Will it help you develop a spiritual development and a personal development plan? Yes. Will it be very good? I mean, I asked it for coaching. I asked it, I started working with Claude last night. I said, I want to kind of reorganize my business, think about strategy, right? I said, I need to think about my business strategy. I had 3 pages, 4 pages in front of me in no time. It asked me these amazing questions and everything like that. Like, it's a pretty useful resource.
Mm, exactly.
And I have a meeting with the school teacher this week because the attitude in schools, I mean, this is not 2023 anymore. In 2023, kids were cheating, right? That's what they'll do. That's partly a flaw of the education system and not of AI, because it's partly the kind of pedagogies that we have, multiple choice thing, multiple choice test that you do at home. you know, the kind of work that we emphasize, like rote memorization, like that system is broken. And it's broken for a reason because we're trying to educate 2 or 3 billion children. I don't know how many children there are, but a lot of them, right? We're trying to mass educate. But anyway, I have a meeting with a school teacher on how AI can enhance critical thinking, how it can prevent cognitive atrophy, how it can be not a drag, like an anchor on these. I have kids, right? I care about this, right? An anchor, but a supercharger tied to their backside. Because for me, it's a supercharger tied to my backside. I've never learned more faster than in the last year. And like, I'm a pretty hungry caterpillar. I don't know if you wrote your children that book. When it comes to learning, I'm a very hungry caterpillar. Uh, One interesting thing to reflect upon. Do you use Notebook LM? You must do, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Yeah. In my opinion, it's the single most useful tool that's come out in the last 3 years. Now, you and I talk to businesses about AI. We talk to individuals about AI. We're kind of swimming in the waters of AI. We keep up to do the news and the podcasts and the McKinsey reports and all that. Kind of like I'm swimming in it. We could be forgiven for thinking like everybody is swimming in these waters. That's cuckoo. We're 1% or 5% or maybe 10%. Because most people, like I had about, say, 6 business meetings last week with very senior, very smart business people. I'm like, oh, how much are you using Notebook? They're like, what's that? And from my point of view, it's like, geez, how do you not know about this? And then I get out my phone, I say, okay, what's a topic you're interested in? I pull out my very lovely Samsung phone, which, by the way, you can get on my website. I have an affiliate. No, I'm just kidding. And I pull it out and I open up Notebook and I said, what are they interested in? Say they say Homer. I'm interested in Homer and Herodotus and how, whatever, some like that. Okay. Find sources. And it pulls up 50 sources. Well, that's no more than Google, right? Well, okay, Google could have done that. Maybe not as fast or as well or as thoroughly. Okay. Now you go over to this window over here and you say, make me flashcards, make me an audio overview, make me a video overview, make me a quiz, make me an infographic, make me a slide deck. And all of a sudden you've gone from, I have to read 20 or 50 books or papers on this to, depending on how you preferred way to consume information, some people's video, some people's audio, some people's text, whatever. And you're going to have 50 books or 20 books or 20 academic articles condensed into a format that accommodates how much time you'd want to devote to learning it. Now, people like look at that, and I won't swear, but they go, holy F S. When I show this to these senior people, they go, wow, how much does that cost? I'm like, well, it's free. And they go, what the? So there's a what I mean to say that's in support of an argument like 75% of the people in the world think that using AI is going, uh, what's a good recipe for chicken parmesan? Like that. Or can you respond to my emails? Or, these very light use cases. That's using 0.0001% of what this thing could do.
Hmm.
And then of this world that I'm talking about these people who are swimming in it, like you and me. And unless I was out in the world meeting real people, because you're not a real person, neither am I.
We're
I was
avatars.
out in the world meeting real people, those 75% or two-thirds or whatever that are like, what's Notebook? And then there's 25% of people that are like my niece. There are three things we can't talk about at Christmas dinner: religion, politics, and AI. Because as soon as AI comes up, she says STFU. I think your listeners will know what that means. I
I
cannot.
live with
She,
teens.
she, she wants nothing to do with it. Good reasons and bad reasons, right? Good reasons, you know, environmental footprint, good reasons, privacy, copyright theft, very good reasons. I'm not pretending all of that. I have half of my first book was on AI ethics. So like I went deep into that water. But she's also confusing all of that with how is this useful to me?
Hmm.
And she'll say things like, oh, it's just like a fancy autocorrect and or something like that. And it's not really thinking. And she's just talking shit about it, right? And she's probably never used it or maybe twice in her whole life. But for her, this thing is Beelzebub
Hmm.
right here. So that's humanity right now, I think. And that's quite an interesting world, I think. And these are not, she's got a college graduate, got a degree in history from University of Wisconsin, like smart girl, very left wing politics. Okay, that's fine. But yeah, what nothing to it. Anyway, what do you think about that?
I I couldn't understand that part about being being smart and still not trying the thing, but I live in a similar planet like you with my kids and the discussions that we have.
Well, what do your kids think about it? No, this is an interesting data point. What do your kids think?
So my kids use AI. One is 18 and the other one is 15. They use AI for asking day-to-day questions of information. I see also that they are using it to help them understanding a concept because it was me who encouraged them if to stop
Yeah,
asking me how to do this
just good.
exercise,
Yeah,
ask
yeah, yeah.
ask
What are you
Gemini.
asking? What are you asking me for? My kid's like, I've got a sore throat. Should I do anything? That's why are you asking me? Ask that. I'll give you 3 pages on it.
And I see a natural tendency for my kids to confide in AI. So if they're having like questions about themselves, their relationships or something like that, they will
Yeah,
go and naturally go and ask AI, what can it be? Because they always like thinking that they are not in the standard way and they are asking AI to validate if because they have these symptoms, they could have a problem, like a mental problem. So they're trying to have a discussion and understand because they will never confide. And that's a barrier that is natural with the parent to ask questions about life. That they will is not they can ask questions about knowledge, but not about themselves. I don't know
yeah.
if you
It's
know
funny.
that.
My kid, I asked my kid about how much he was using it. He said, "God, it was really helpful when I was depressed." Uh,
When yes.
what was that, bro? Oh, last summer, man. I was going through the shit. There was some drama at school. Oh, nice of you to tell me. But like I think that's great, and I actually encourage that. I
Yes.
encourage that because your friends when you're a teenager aren't always safe.
Mm, yes.
Like, look, the way teenage boys are. Like whatever. Like you don't go to your buddy who's on the high school buddy with yours and say, buddy, I just really need to unburden myself right now. Have you got like 20 minutes when you could just listen? Like we don't do that.
No, no,
Never,
that's
never
impossible.
in the history of humanity has a teenage boy done that, right? I just really need to speak for the heart right now. I'd like to feel listened to for 20 minutes. Right? No way, right?
Paul, the I have the impression that in the workplace. So let's think about some there was. I am pretty sure that it was a research, but I saw a number going around that so many proof of concept of AI have been used in 2025, and most of them have been failure. I don't want to remember exactly the numbers, but there was
A
only
big,
a minority.
it's a big number.
Yes. So let's say that this is true, that it has been a failure because companies go and ask a beautiful, well-dressed McKinsey guy or Bain or Boston Consulting, let's do the presentation. What is the strategy? They pay millions, and there is somebody else who will be implementing, and these guys, they start teaching you the basics of LLM, of whatever way to use the money, but not the right way. And suddenly you have a magic wand, and you have the possibility to change that crap and stop wasting the money of many corporations. What would it be the right way to encourage people to learn AI the correct way, so that not to ask the prompts, how do I do the carbonara pasta in, as you mentioned just before, to
Yeah.
ChatGPT, but to use the wealth of tools to be always aware about what is coming next, to be able to judge if my AI is ethic or is being completely manipulated. How do you do that? How
I
would
have
you do that?
I have a theory. So first of all, I think my dad, who's like 90, said to me, "I want you to teach me how to use AI." Dad, just start asking it questions about stuff. Ask it questions about you. He's a quite famous scientist. Ask it about you.
Yeah.
What's this guy's like? What's this guy's legacy? Start there. Ask about the town you grew up in. He's fascinated with World War II history. Talked about World War II history. That ability to tinker and that willingness to kind of use something that's a little unfamiliar, that's a little clink, thing. But here's the other thing. There's the most famous TED talk of all time, Ken Robinson, talked about human curiosity.
Hmm.
I think that AI can take the lid off human curiosity and have it explode. Let me explain my theory. I just say it's a hypothesis now, okay? You're a little kid and you're interested in, oh, what does it do if I do that? Or what does it do if I throw my plate on the floor or something like that? And as you get older, you begin to become curious about more and more things. You're 7 or 8 years old, you're curious about this. Some kids are more curious than others. You have all these silly things. We say curiosity killed the cat, you know. Winnie the Pooh got curious about what was in you know, got stung by the bee. We have a lot of negative stories about curiosity, but one of the things that happens with curiosity is when you start to be curious about more things. So my kid's like 8 years old, 10 years old. He's like, "What's this thing called quantum mechanics, Dad?" You want to encourage that, right?
Yeah.
Like he's not about to get a PhD in it, right? But you want to say, "Well, I don't know all that much about it, but here's something that will. Here's a book." Yeah,
Hmm.
as you grow older and older, you get curious about more and more things. Like I've never read Herodotus. I've never read the Iliad. All right. I'm kind of curious what's in there, but I don't have to. There's lots of things that occur to me like, oh, it'd be interesting to know something about that. But then we have a barrier. Like 50 years ago, the barriers you had to go to damn library
Hmm.
and you had to look in the paper catalog file. It's like, oh, let me find a book on Herodotus, right? Now, tell me about Herodotus' contributions to the understanding of civilization in the ancient Greek and Egyptian worlds, please. Can I have 3 pages? Pitch it at a master's level. See, that's what I mean by taking the cork off. Because now all these ideas that you're curious about in your life, you can answer in 5 seconds. I don't have to go to the goddamn library and figure out and I don't have to look at a book like this on Herodotus. I can find out thing. And if I'm more curious, I can go further. The gap between having the kind of I'm curious about this and having an answer to it has become very short. It's gone. Isn't that interesting for humanity? And what's most inspiring to me is there will come a time when that's available. I don't know how many iPhones there are in the world, billions and billions. I don't know how many people have iPhones and one of these in the world. 80% of the world's population or something, adult population, 90% of the world's adult population. We will now have a resource for people to be cleverer, smarter, more curious, more informed, better critical thinking. What do you think about that? Is that too? Am I drinking Kool-Aid? Have I been listening to Sam Altman too much?
I, I would tend to agree that the tools in order to the sea of information is there in front of us, but at the same time, I don't feel that most of the people are using it. It's almost like the potential has been increasing drastically to accessibility of information that we couldn't back when we were teens. Imagine to get some information, we had to read books, pages and pages. And as you say, today we have the accessibility, but I don't think that the level of curiosity is growing at the same
I
pace.
I I don't know whether it is or it isn't. I could be living in a dream world,
Mm.
but I do know that I mean, it's an interesting question. Maybe information theorists have thought it is that the internet made us better informed. Something like that. I mean, this is much more reliable than doing an internet search, right? Because you do an internet search, you'll get Reddit, you'll get X, you'll get all kinds of bullshit, you'll get TikTok videos, you'll get all this kind of crap. Like this, in a way, is a good epistemic filter.
Mm.
And in fact, the way they're training the models right now is they're very conservative. So if you ask this is in my book, Brains, Bodies, Minds, by the way, tell me about whether I should inject human growth hormone because all my peptide bro biohacking friends are doing it. This thing is going to be super conservative. It'll
Mm.
basically say, "Are you out of your mind?" Right? It takes a very conservative stance on medical issues. Very, very conservative, and that's by design, right? I do want to take time before we end to tell your listeners about the sort of stuff I'm building and up to in the world because I'm really excited about it. But I don't know if I have time to bore your listeners. How long do you want to go? It's another 10 minutes,
Let's go. Paul, for
another 10 minutes,
you,
5 minutes.
let's continue because I wanted to ask you exactly
All
because
right, all
I
right, all
know
right, all
that
right, all right.
you have been jumping every time that we have met, we have discussed is you get hooked in one specific topic because you are hungry for more. This knowledge thingy, and I have seen you touch several topics, and I want to know what are you up to right now?
My dad says to me, anytime you're about to get world class at something, you go do something else. But you know the way parents can actually know exactly where to stick the knife in.
Yes.
I mean, he's not wrong, right? I've studied a lot of different things. Honestly, one of the things I've been trying to do with my life for the next 10 years is write a book like this is going to sound grandiose, Yuval Harari, right? Something really that grand and inspirational. First of all, that's a hard thing to do because he's no dummy and he's a brilliant storyteller. So partly I wanted to take the breadth of my because like I have more degrees and speak more languages and more like thing. Take all of that and try and harness it into something. Anyway, it's a very hard project. But the other thing is not very commercial viable. Like I have teenagers. You have teenagers, like I if it was just me, I go live in a shack someplace as long as I had a good internet connection or something like that. My living cost would be $1,500 a month. I had kids in college. I have responsibilities. So that's not a very commercially viable strategy for me. It's not that it couldn't happen, but if I got 2 years to invest in writing my opus magnus for which I'll be remembered, and is it likely to happen even if I did devote 2 years to it? Probabilities would say don't bet on it. Don't bet on it, son. So the speaking business is really what I love to do. Like I really like to get out there and engage like you and I do. We have a lot of fun. We kid about it. We talk about things that matter to the world, that matter to humanity. I think I bring that like a broad perspective. Like I have this thing where, I start with the history of humankind on the savannah, like what it was like for us, like these poor, shivering, we don't have fangs, we're not that fast. One of the things I say when I talk is like, if you were an alien playing DraftKings in a spaceship, you wouldn't bet on the humans 100,000 years ago. Like, nah, bro, my money's on the lion. So that's one thing is I do a lot of speaking. And then the things that I'm developing as concepts are, and there's so many, people first adoption. So, and I think for people, I mean, first of all, there's the very obvious thing. People first is like, let's make this thing good for people.
Mm,
Let's make it good for humanity. Now that's really, really super abstract, right? Like everybody says that. Sam Altman says that. But what I mean is organizations is everybody's like ROI, efficiency, automate, reduce headcount and everything like that. And then they wonder why fear, mistrust,
mm,
why am I going to automate myself out of a job? Skills training, some e-learning bullshit. Like why when the AI hits these human systems and the human systems are going like my niece is like over my dead body. Because like that partly exists. Nobody was ever worried that, like, oh, there's a new version of Salesforce out. Oh no, what are we gonna do? Yeah, but AI is like that, right? So I think people first is I think organizations, I would want them to first consider people first use cases. How are you gonna make those 100,000 people that work for you, how are you gonna make their lives better? How are you going to remove the shit work they
mm,
do day in, day out that stops them being their best selves? That's the question. And if you do that, and if you say, this isn't just about me potentially automating this workflow and then one day automating you out of a job so that we can make an extra, $500 million a year. Because that's not going to inspire anybody.
mm.
Nobody in the workforce was ever inspired by, I think you should do this because it'll make me a lot more money. It's going to be good for the shareholders. Who gives a shit about that, right? I want my life to be better. I want my career to progress faster. So people first AI is the ethos. It's not just a kind of moral stance, like it's got to be good for humanity, but it's a pragmatic stance. It's like it will work better for you and your business if you think more about how this can conserve people. The other thing is like, who's going to redesign the workflows?
Mm.
Oh, let me see. Well, you could have McKinsey do it, but you could also have the people that are doing the work do it.
Exactly.
Let them design. And so people first is sounds like Sam Altman at one level, but at another level, it's deeply, deeply practical. And what the history of change management, by the way, as you know, my view is change management is a pile of bullshit. And, even though I've written 6 books on it, like the way that people think about change management, complete crock of shit. But change management is, there's some part about when a technological system, the train, comes rushing into this human system, is how are these 100 or 1,000 or 100,000 people going to respond?
Mm,
And how do we do that so that max minimum damage to the human beings with mortgages, and families, and children and grandparents? Like, how do we do that in that way? Like thinking morally about it, because I know that's a big concern of yours. And how do we do it pragmatically? So yes, it's adding value to us as an organization, but it's adding value to the people. Because you remember the great bullshit from the 1990s. I don't know, you old enough? You're a young guy. You old in the 1990s. People are our most valued asset, right?
mm. I started
And if
working
people
in.
hear that, and people think like, what a crock of shit. Like, really? Come on. Did you really just say that? Did that come out of your mouth, Mr. CEO? Because like you don't behave like that. That's not the way you run your business. Enron, our people are our prized possession. Sure, sure they are. Anyway, that's people first. And the other dimension of that is accelerated adoption.
Mm,
Because I think the thing that inspires me is attaching a rocket ship to the learning and career development of the people that work for you.
mm.
Now, why should you do that? You should do that because A, you're going to make shit ton more money, but also you'll be a great place to work. And also it's exhilarating and fun for people. Like, I think you're like me. I've never had more fun in my life. This is a blast.
It's one of the
I
best
feel like
things, yes.
I feel like I'm 15. So, so I'm building people first. I'm building accelerated adoption. And I also have a consulting service that's aimed at really at the top. I mean, you know, because I don't want to have a team of 1,000 people working for me. I want to have a team of like one or two. So the work I do will necessarily be restrained by how much, my own individual thing. So a lot of the work I'll be doing is either advising CAIOs or fractional CAIO. Those are the sorts of offerings. I also am offering a coaching service. So, do you see that research from Harvard? You must have, with Ethan Mollick and Harvard, MIT, and Boston Consulting Group. They gave $1,000 workers. It's about 1,000. I can't remember exactly how many think work to do. I don't know what they are. Solving a problem, writing a PowerPoint, designing a marketing strategy, blah, blah, blah. That's sort of what knowledge workers do. And they measure their performance. No AI, with AI, and with AI, but taught how to use the AI. What's your guess how much the quality of the trained to use AI was over Boston consulting groups and also consultants? And also remember, those Boston consulting group consultants aren't idiots to begin with. Like they're already they're no, but they're already pretty good. Like they already know how to make a deck, right? They've done that before.
Yeah.
So how much do you think the quality output? How much do you think the increase in quality was?
Um, I'm going to be
No,
cheating because I know that you have mentioned it in the
you
book.
know, you're gonna shit. All right, for your listeners, it's 40%. So like that sounds like the kind of number that someone is pulling out of their backside. No, this study's from Wharton and MIT. I do also want to say it's early days for MIT for AI. I do also want to say we need 100 studies and not one. 40% increase in quality and 25% increase in speed.
Hmm.
So that means if you're using AI well as a leader, as a manager, in the ways that you and I have just talked about, or something like that, you save 10 hours a week.
Hmm.
Go be go be with your kids more. I think
Exactly.
that's a big deal.
Hmm.
I think it's a big deal. So that's what I'm up to.
Hmm.
Consulting and speaking. Thank you
So
for letting me do my
yeah,
whatever it was. I feel like a used car salesman.
no, 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 no. This time I was really interested about where are you exactly in your life. So if I remember correctly, if people wants to reach you out to understand more about people first strategy or accelerating adoption or being a whisperer for these big shots in corporations. So first, LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, LinkedIn. I mean, Paul Gibbons, Paul G. Gibbons on LinkedIn. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the easiest way. And then I mean, this website is going to be out next week, so I don't even want to give away the URL, but I've just built a website, um, which will be live in probably about 20 minutes after I finish this call. I have an old website, paulgibbons.net, paulgibbons.net. It's got all my
Mhm.
books, it's got all my speaking videos, all my bio, all the bullshit about me. And I'm also on Substack. All the shit I and
Ooh,
then I
this.
got on I'm very active on Substack.
Yeah, by
Very
the
active.
way, I just have to
Very
recommend
active
to
on
everybody Substack because here is where I grasp a little bit of your knowledge and I steal sometimes your way of thinking.
bless you. Anyway, what else should we cover? Like I mean, I would really like to hear and maybe we're nearly out of time, but like how could we collaborate between Switzerland and the United States? Just like in Davos, right? Imagine that I'm President Trump visiting you near Geneva or something like that. How could we collaborate?
Then I will have to offer you a Rolex, Paul, in order that you drop my taxes.
bro, bro, I want a private jet like the UAE gave to, or whoever gave a private jet.
Qatar, it was
Gave him some
Qatar.
bit jet. Qatar. Excuse me. Sorry, my apologies. Apologies to friends in the Emirates.
Paul, there is
No, we
definitely
should
so
work
much.
together. We should work together and talk some more. That's really lovely.
I really feel that especially the methodology of people first is something that a lot of European businesses are craving for and nobody has practiced correctly. I see what there is inside in the market and is still in a bullshit bingo proof of concept selling stories and no
Yeah.
results for companies. Paul, it has been magnificent to spend time with you. I'm going to
Como
be putting
siempre,
up
como siempre, papi.
como siempre, papi. Thank you, Paul. Have an excellent day.
Thank you, buddy.